Three, two, one. Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schaumler. This is Strong Opinion Sports, episode 438. Welcome in. It's one of those special episodes. I am breaking down episodes 6 and 7 of Tom Brady's docuseries, Man in the Arena. And, I'm actually going to go in reverse order. I'm going to start with episode 7 and then talk about episode 6. I actually did not like episode 6. I did not record a standalone episode for the 6th episode of this docuseries because I didn't like it. And I don't want to start that way. That feels really negative, and I can explain that at the end if you want to hear that. But I want to start with episode 7 because Tom Brady's not only one of my favorite athletes in the world, he's one of the most inspirational people in my life. I've never met Tom Brady, but his approach to life and work ethic, there are two people that really, really heavily influenced me as a child, Tom Brady and Tim Tebow. I remember Tim Tebow, his coach at Nice High School once said, Timmy's the kind of guy you got to pull the reins back on. You're never going to have to tell Tim Tebow to slow down. You're going to have to make sure Tim Tebow's actually getting rest and taking care of himself. And, it's kind of perfect. I actually have not slept. What time is it now? It is almost 3:30 p.m. on Monday. And I have been up since Sunday morning at 8 a.m. And I stayed up all night working on content, put out the Monday episode. Here we are. I wanted to get this out before Tuesday, and I walked away from episode 7 of Tom Brady's Man in the Arena. It's called Surrender. I walked away feeling inspired and remembering a lot of who I am, I think, as a human being. And that's what I want to talk about. So Tom Brady starts by talking about these things, the 4 agreements. Don't take things personally. Don't make assumptions. Do your best. And be impeccable with your word. I don't know what all that stuff means. It's some book that Tom Brady read. But the one that really stands out to me is do your best. And Tom, for this episode, he's had characters in every episode. In episode 6, it was Vince Wilfork and Richard Sherman. In this episode, it was his 3 sisters, Maureen, Julie, and Nancy. Tom is the youngest of 4 children, and he's got 3 older sisters. And I want to skip ahead to the end of the episode. His sister said something. She said, Tom Brady is unlike anyone I've ever met. She said, my brother's unlike anyone I've ever met. She said, he lives his life to be the best at something. And I find that really inspiring. I think I used to pursue that. And, there's this thing. Tom Brady talks about how, all you can do is your best. And who cares what anyone else thinks about you as long as you can look in the mirror and are really pursuing the very best you can be and doing the very best you can. And, Tom was talking at the end of this episode about how, I know I can do better. And I know personally in my life, it's a never-ending pursuit to do, quote, better, because you can always do better. But I don't know if anyone else has ever looked in the mirror and felt like, I really could have given more effort. And that's what I walked away from with this episode. And this is, of course, the story of him coming back from a 28-3 deficit in the Super Bowl. And I just wanted to start with that because I really I just walked away from this episode hyped. I'm really kind of turning a corner in my life. I think the last 2 years of my life have been very weird, and I've been distracted, and I've been pulled off on different things, and different things became a priority in my life above my work. And I think I was really depressed when that was happening because truly, my work is my favorite thing on the planet. The same way I actually wonder if Tom Brady, when he does eventually retire, I wonder if he's going to be depressed because I remember when I quit football, there was definitely a long period of time where what do I put all my energy into? And thank God I had Strong Opinion Sports. I actually shifted my quarterback career directly into making podcasts and making content. And I just think it would be really disingenuous to talk about this episode without sharing that, I try to use the lessons I learned as a quarterback in my everyday life as a podcast host and as a content creator and as a YouTuber. And, I really think the best thing, if you're just a regular person, I'm not a football player. Like, look at me. I'm not an NFL quarterback. But every single human being can learn from Tom Brady and learn life lessons and learn about work ethic. And there are things you can use in your life, no matter what job you have, whether you are, I remember I worked as a car washer. I literally washed cars 12 hours a day, 6 days a week at one point in my life. And hey, it was also a 5-hour shift on Sunday, right? Or I was a cameraman, or I was in college, or I played quarterback, or I've done a lot of different roles in my life. And this is the one I do now, and hopefully will do for the rest of my life, is making content. But the lessons you learn in football can always be used. And you don't even have to play football to learn them. You got to pay attention to athletes. Because athletes, people like Tom Brady that are immensely successful, when they share some of the knowledge and the nuggets they have, listen, because you really can learn a lot. Now, this episode largely centered at the beginning around Deflategate and what Tom Brady did during Deflategate. And I want to point out something. I have never, ever really understand. So I understand why people came down hard on Tom Brady for Deflategate. A lot of it, I think, is people don't like him. And as a human species, I don't understand it, but I do recognize people really like to tear people down. I don't know why that is, but when we see someone that's successful, I think it's an ego thing. I don't know what. People really don't like to acknowledge when someone's great. We like to poke holes in them and go, oh, but this, oh, but that. And when people found out about Tom Brady, quote unquote, deflating footballs, they're like, we found the reason. He's not great because he works really hard. He's not great because he's obsessed with football. He's great because he's cheating. And I think people like that story better than acknowledging that someone works really hard. Because let me tell you what, I don't know about you guys. When I think about my work ethic and then I think about Tom Brady, I feel like dog shit. I'm like, fuck. That dude's out there working his ass off right now, and I'm watching Justified. What do you think, Tom? Like, has anyone ever had that thought in their life where you're like, what is Tom Brady doing right now? I sometimes think about that, and I go, he's either sleeping or training or watching film. Probably watching film. Like, actually, most of your day, if you're awake, you're like, hey, Tom Brady's either watching film or practicing. And I'm not even kidding. And I just want to encourage anyone, if you ever are struggling with motivation, think about that. And it's weird, like I feel like I'm talking about Tom Brady like he's this rock star level, like a Jesus-like figure in the world. But man, if that's what it takes to motivate you, because that motivates me, that challenge of what's Tom Brady doing right now? And do I want to be great like Tom Brady, or do I want to be like, I don't know, Johnny Manziel, Mitchell Trubisky? I don't want to be a Mitchell Trubisky. I want to be like Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, the guy who's immensely successful. And so whatever motivates you, that's great. But that, to me, that thought, what's Tom Brady doing right now? That really, really motivates me. Now, here are my gripes with the Deflategate scandal. So Tom Brady got accused of deflating footballs, and there are so many problems. Number one, have you ever heard of the ideal gas law? There's a great video of a professor breaking down what the ideal gas law is. Here it is in a nutshell. When you have a football inflated in a warm temperature, and then take that football into a cold temperature, maybe, 70 degrees inside a building, 32 degrees outside, that football loses PSI. It loses air pressure because of the ideal gas law. It literally, that's more than likely what happened with the footballs, is that you had a football that got pumped up in a warm locker room, then taken outside, the PSI got checked, oh, it's underinflated. Well, no, it's the ideal gas law. And that professor literally said, we jumped to the conclusion of Tom Brady's cheating rather than ideal gas law. And also, it's kind of a microcosm of our society. We love to ignore facts when they go against what we like to believe, because everyone believes something that comforts them. I don't care whether you're religious or whatever your thing is, whatever couple things you believe. I think people tend to believe stuff in life that they are comforted by. The other thing I really hate about Deflategate is that deflated football or not, you still have to perform at the quarterback position. Pick any random human on the street. Give them a deflated football and put them at the quarterback position in the NFL. They ain't doing shit. They're going to be horrible. Put any high school quarterback, any college quarterback. Put them at quarterback for the New England Patriots and give them a deflated football and ask them if they do well. They're not going to do well because playing quarterback is about so much more than the PSI on a football. It's about your footwork. It's about your poise. It's about handling pressure in your face. It's about stepping into hits. And it's mostly about reading a defense. Like, who cares if the ball's deflated if you can't read the defense and throw the ball to the wrong spot? If Tom Brady was terrible and the footballs were deflated, literally nobody would care. So, and also, here's the other thing. I think throwing a deflated football, which is a football that's not fully pumped up, is actually harder. I spin the ball a lot out of my hand. My hand does a lot of work to and go watch Aaron Rodgers. He literally spins the ball. The ball doesn't spin out of your hand very well when it's not fully inflated. When you grab a ball and it squishes down a little bit, I find that harder to throw. That might just be me, but if you're really spinning the football off of your hand, an underinflated football is actually harder to throw. So those are all the reasons why I've never liked the arguments against Tom Brady when it came to Deflategate. Never really made sense to me, other than the fact that people just probably like to hate on Tom Brady. Because we like to hate on everybody. Anybody who ever succeeds, there's going to be a group of people that go, fuck that guy. And I actually, now that I think about it out loud, it's probably because giving credit and it makes, I think we're so competitive naturally as human beings that giving credit to another person for their work ethic, for what they do, it's kind of a challenge. Like I said, if you think about what's Tom Brady doing right now, he's probably working. And if you don't want to work, then you're like, fuck Tom Brady. I don't want to work, and it makes you feel bad about yourself, so it's easier to call him a cheater. His sister also said something I really liked. She said that Tom Brady is a great ambassador to the game of football, and I could not agree more. And I also, man, you can hate Tom Brady. That's fine, especially Jets fans, Bills fans. I understand it's been years and years and years of pain. So if Tom Brady beat up on your football team for years, no problem, right? Hating him is one thing, but not respecting him is another. You can say, I hate when Tom Brady plays my football team because he always beats us. But I think everyone, literally everyone, should respect Tom Brady. Even I think some of the most successful people in the world. I can even understand arguments for hating Jeff Bezos, right? Totally, right? He's I think could solve a lot of the world's problems if he spent his money a little bit differently rather than going into space. And that's not the debate I want to have here. But who is Tom Brady hurting by being an amazing quarterback? I think all he's doing is giving positive to the world. And unless you're a Bills or a Jets fan, he's not hurting anybody. I love that. Poor Jets fans. So right before this year, a couple things happened. First of all, Tom Brady got a 4-game suspension for deflated footballs. He also was going through a lot. His mom was going through chemotherapy. She was very sick. And so during Tom Brady's 4-game suspension, he did a couple things. He went to Costa Rica. He went to a college football game at Michigan, his alma mater. He took his young son, Jack. And Tom Brady said, that's the first time I've been to a college game since I played in college. And he's been really busy kind of playing in the NFL ever since then. And he went to the Amalfi Coast with his wife. And these two things, whether, it's his mom going through chemotherapy and then the pain of kind of public shame, him getting punished, a 4-game suspension. He says something at the end of this episode, FEA, it's an FEA year, a fuck 'em all year. Fuck 'em all. That's kind of his attitude. Hey, okay, people don't like me. And he said something that I thought was kind of weird. He said, if you're explaining, you're losing. And I don't really agree with that because if I like to plead my case, and if I ever get into hot water, right, on YouTube and there's some big scandal, you bet your sweet ass I'm going to make a video saying, here's what happened. Here's my perspective, and I'm going to tell you what I was thinking and be totally open and honest. And then you allow the audience to choose. But I'm gonna treat myself, I'm gonna be like a lawyer and defend myself. Here's what happened from my perspective, and you can be the judge. And I'll probably only do it once. But the fact that Tom Brady said, I don't need to defend myself at all is kind of crazy to me. Because I would be like, dude, if I was Tom Brady, I'd be like, ideal gas law, ideal gas. I'd be like that video, Charlie Day, that meme of him with all the where he's on a wall. And it's got all these strings pointing in all these different directions. I'd be like Charlie Day going, ideal gas law, deflated footballs, reading defenses. I know it would make sense to me. I wouldn't make sense to anyone, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Now, so this is the story of him coming back from down 28-3 in the Super Bowl. And early on in the episode, it was very much glossed over. One of his sisters said something about Gisele, how Gisele has an attitude. Gisele Bündchen, his wife, Tom Brady's wife, has an attitude of, instead of saying, why is this happening to me? Gisele says, why is this happening for me? How can I use this adversity as an opportunity to get better or grow? Or it's not a defeatist attitude. Gisele has an attitude of a fighter. And to me, that's a winner's mentality. I have been around people who, when bad stuff happens, they handle it very badly. They cower down and they allow it to, they have a totally defeatist attitude. And those people are horrible to be around. It's not fun. I've spent way too much time with people like that. It's not fun. And to be down 28-3 and keep fighting and still having hope is something really special. And I want to tell a story about this Super Bowl. Falcons, Patriots, it is February 5th, 2017. 5th or 6th, I don't remember. But I know it was a year after my brother died, almost to the day. And my brother committed suicide, so a year before this Super Bowl. And I was not in a good place in life at all. And I don't know if it was because I was delusional and had already been through a lot of pain emotionally. I'm like, I can't handle more loss and suffering, or what. But when Tom Brady was down 28-3, I was at a Super Bowl party with my best friend's family. Every person in the room hated Tom Brady and was rooting for Atlanta. And I was like, I can't handle this. Fuck all these people. Fuck them all. FEA, right? I was like, I can't. I love Tom Brady. I'm heartbroken right now that this team is down. And also, I believe he's going to come back. And again, that could have been either I'm crazy or rational, but I refuse to believe that Tom Brady was going to keel over and die and give up. And so I went to another Super Bowl party where there were people actually that wanted New England to win and were rooting for, and I was much happier in that environment. It was great for me. I was like, oh, my people, yeah, you want Tom to win too? You believe they can win too? And it was, I went there at halftime. So the second half of that game was way better. I remember feeling just awesome. And as it built and built, and Tom Brady made a comeback, and it was, they were down 28-12, and it's a 2-score game, and then, they need a 2-point conversion, and it happened. And this episode didn't really tell the story very well, in my opinion, because, I really wanted Julian Edelman to be in this episode to talk about that crazy catch he made, and instead it was his family, and that's a very deliberate choice that I don't fully know what it is, but I can only speculate that what Tom Brady was doing there was he wanted his sisters to be the other characters of this episode because he wanted to tell the story from a family perspective. This was a hard year, and it was about his family supporting him and them all coming together. And I can only imagine that's why, because I would have loved to have Julian Edelman talk about that crazy catch he made. But I guess this was him wanting to share this moment and this story with his family, which is interesting and cool. And I just, I really, really walked away from this episode very inspired. And I'll never forget the feeling of, no matter what side you were rooting for, whether you were rooting for Atlanta or New England, this was a very exciting, tense, and fun Super Bowl. The Patriots and the Falcons, where I'll never forget the tension in my throat, where, it's 26-28. Tom Brady's going for 2, trying to tie the game up so they have a chance to win. No matter whether you're rooting for Atlanta or New England that moment, everyone held their breath and had this tense, guttural feeling. And that's one of those moments that is a shared experience that the whole world watching had. That is rare. That kind of moment where, let's be real, Monday Night Football tonight, Steelers, Browns, nothing in that game can live up to that moment. No matter what happens, I'm not going to be as invested. It's not going to be as epic of a moment. To have that kind of moment in the Super Bowl, a crazy comeback like that, where it's so much tension, everything rides on this one play. That, to me, is what football is all about. When you don't know who's going to win and it's all up in the air, at the end of a game, to me, that's what the Rose Bowl was this year. And that's what I love about sports, is that moment of uncertainty where you're like, are they going to win? Is a team that I really want to win, that I'm emotionally invested in, going to pull it off? And so I want to end this segment about episode 7 with, it's really beautiful how Tom's family supports him, and I almost was brought to tears the way his family talked about him and with the reverence and respect, and it's clear they all admire him and his work ethic and who he is. And I think I've always wanted that from my family. I think my family, there's only a couple people in my family who understand what I do and that I pull all-nighters all the time. And I think some people think I'm aloof or weird or, it's like, no, I really work all the time. And I think sometimes it would be nice for the people that, and maybe it goes to show they don't know me very well, but there have been people in my family who have not understood, and I think even think I'm like crazy or fucked up or, like damaged or something. And they mistake my drive and desire to succeed and make it and have a great show that I'm really proud of. And they mistake my drive for like some kind of disorder, like maybe bipolar or something, right? I don't know what it is. It's like, no, I stay up all night, not because I'm crazy, because I fucking love my job and I like working. And nothing is more satisfying on the planet than getting out an episode on Monday when football happened on Sunday. Do you know how hard it is to watch as many games as I watch and track them all and follow the narratives and try to turn out content on Monday morning about those games? It is the hardest thing on the planet. And today was a Monday where I did it, and I've been trying to do that for, months and months and months. And today was one of the first times in all of football season that I finally did it. And you know what it's going to take is Sunday nights I'm not going to sleep, and that's okay. And I don't really want people nagging me or telling me like, fucking go to bed. No. Sunday nights are the night where I don't sleep until the show is out, and that's okay. And if you're watching and you're cringing, like, understand that excites me. Like that's what it takes, and that's me knowing I'm putting out my very best. And that's, I think, what Tom Brady's entire career is about, him looking in the mirror and saying, like, I really did everything I could to succeed. And when you know you gave it everything you possibly had, there really is no better feeling in the world. And I just mean, like, for me, Mondays, right? That moment on a Monday, that challenge of, can you get out football content, an episode of Strong Opinion Sports on a Monday about football that happened on Sunday? And when you do it, there really is no better feeling on the planet. I think I have anything else to talk about for episode 7, but it was fun. Yeah, and very, very inspiring. And that it kind of really reinvigorated my love for my job and football. And this episode was exactly what I needed at this time in my life. Now, Man in the Arena episode 6. The subtitle was Stop the Bleeding. It had Richard Sherman in it, Vince Wilfork in it. And it's a story of the Patriots winning the Super Bowl against the Seattle Seahawks on that last second play where Malcolm Butler made a catch at the end of the play, at the end of the game. And here's why I didn't like this episode. There's been a couple moments where it felt like Tom was, I think, a little bit disingenuous, and the docuseries was kind of fluffy, meaning like it wasn't very hard-hitting, and I felt like Tom was holding back. For example, when Tom Brady talks about the Patriots drafting Jimmy Garoppolo in the second round, he made it seem like, oh, it's all good, sunshine and rainbows, and I was so happy to meet Jimmy Garoppolo, and I'm like, bullshit. No way. I don't buy that. Like, hey, you might have been nice to Jimmy Garoppolo. You might have been welcoming to Jimmy Garoppolo when he got drafted by the Patriots. But don't fucking act like you weren't bothered or you were happy. And, I didn't make an episode last week partially because I interviewed the director, the CEO of Religion and Sports who made this documentary. And I was like, having a hard time, like, do I really come out and just bash their directing and I'm like, fuck it, right? Like, I don't owe them anything. And I felt like this episode was kind of fake. Episode 6, I'm like, okay, Deflategate. Tom Brady felt dishonest. And no one asked him, hey, what happened to the cell phone? Tom Brady destroyed his cell phone when Deflategate happened. And by the way, I think Tom Brady was innocent during Deflategate. But the fact that he still feels the need to like not be honest about, yeah, I destroyed my cell phone because I was afraid. I was afraid. That's it. Can we? Is that? And I, for whatever reason, and probably because it's bad PR and it would admit guilt or whatever, he can't say that. But it's like, why did the ball boy get fired by the Patriots? What happened there? Like, I have all these questions, and or even the way that the play was. So at the end of the Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl, where the Patriots won, Seattle hit this crazy long throw to Jermaine Kearse, and it went down to the 2-yard line, and instead of running the ball with Marshawn Lynch, they threw the ball on the goal line. Malcolm Butler had a crazy interception. And the fact that Malcolm Butler was in the episode, and that I felt like the series didn't appreciate that interception for being the reason why they won the Super Bowl. I felt like Tom was kind of like, they glossed over, like, hey, if Tom Brady doesn't win that Super Bowl, and he also lost to the Giants, and if he lost, like, Tom Brady's been very close to losing a lot of Super Bowls, and it comes down to those little plays, and I felt like that play, that interception by Malcolm Butler, like, wasn't given the shine it deserved, and that felt weird to me. Episode 6 was, I thought, the worst episode of the series because it felt fluffy, it felt like things were glossed over, and in fact, episode 7 dove way more into Deflategate than I thought episode 6 did, and I felt like episode 6 should have gone there, and it didn't. So, I wasn't a big fan. Now, Tom said some good stuff here, too. For example, when the Patriots did draft Jimmy Garoppolo, people were starting to say, like, what happens if Tom isn't in New England? And Tom talked about how, hey, like, even though my body was getting older, I felt like I was aging differently than other people because I was maturing as a leader, getting better as a decision maker. I was developing in places that were different than just my physical ability. And Vince Wilfork gave a great quote in this episode 6, where he said, if anyone's going to take my job, they deserve it because they're going to have to take it from me. They're going to have to beat me. I like that. Like, that's a great attitude. Hey, if you're going to take my job as starting quarterback or starting defensive tackle, whatever, you got to beat me outright. And I'm going to fight, scratch, and claw and do the very best I can. And, Tom also said, I loved this when the Patriots started 2-2, the year they beat the Seattle Seahawks in the Super Bowl. The media was starting to say this is the beginning of the end of Tom Brady and the Patriots. They drafted Jimmy Garoppolo, and they're losing, and they're 2-2, and they had this really bad loss to Kansas City. And Tom gave this quote that I love in this episode. He said he felt like people were excited to tell the story that things were turning south in New England with Brady and Belichick and their relationship, and like they'd been on top for so long. And they told all these stories about how great they are, and they were kind of getting sick of and bored of them winning so much. And that year is where we got that quote from Belichick, on to Cincinnati. Now, I also really like Vince Wilfork was talking about himself as a leader in the locker room. And he said that because Tom Brady never had to make a tackle, some guys could write him off. And Vince felt like he was listened to more in the locker room at times than Tom because of he's a bad motherfucker who tackles people, and he's a defensive tackle doing the dirty work and the gritty work. And it's also funny how the media in the Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl year, when they started 2-2, it was doomsday. And as they started winning, the media took a massive shift. And I want to say, like, I've learned in my time watching Tom Brady and being a blatant Tom Brady fan, never count out Tom Brady. If anything, the Atlanta Falcons Super Bowl taught us that. The fact that he is, as old as he is, leading the NFL in like every statistical category. The fact that he came back from a deficit of 28-3. Like, I would rather be the person who believes in Tom Brady for too long than is quick to pull the trigger and doubt him. That's not how I want to live my life, tearing people down. And until Tom Brady shows us like truly that he fails, I'm not ready to ever stop believing in Tom Brady. And he's already gone above and beyond every expectation he possibly can have. And I don't know. I also thought it was weird, like the feud between Richard Sherman and Tom Brady and how they told the story of that. I didn't really care about that. It was also interesting that this was filmed, episode 6 was filmed way before Richard Sherman and Tom Brady eventually would become teammates in Tampa this year. So that's kind of a fun thought that they talked all about that. But I really felt like we didn't hear the truth about Deflategate, Jimmy Garoppolo, the truth about, how he felt about Peyton Manning leaving Indianapolis and not getting the respect he deserves. And I don't know. I felt like episode 6 was an episode where, because he talks about Peyton Manning leaving Indianapolis and the team wasn't very supportive of him and they discarded him. And then he went to Denver and killed it and broke all these records. And Tom Brady did that interview after going to Tampa and winning a Super Bowl. And I felt like he was talking about himself indirectly and wasn't leaning into it. And I just felt like this entire episode is very guarded, and it was Tom not sharing as much as he could have. And it was nice because we got this Marvel-style teaser at the end of episode 6 where he did share like a little bit about, hey, we're going to talk more about Deflategate in the next episode, which they did. There's one thing I wanted to talk about that I really liked. It was actually from episode 7. It was where Tom Brady talked about, I'm trying to find it in my notes. It was Tom Brady talking about how he wants to inspire with his actions. And I love that. I feel like recently I've been saying a lot rather than doing a lot. And I think for most of my career leading up to the last maybe year and a half, I was leading with my actions and letting what I was producing and the podcast I was making and the prolific nature and how the frequency of it, I was letting that speak for my work ethic rather than telling you I work hard. And I think I got away from that, and it's been a weird year, and I'm really excited to do more than talk about doing more, if that makes sense. And there's nothing more powerful than showing people with your actions than telling them with words. And I really like that. And I just thought that that was awesome. And by the way, if Tom Brady lost in the Super Bowl to Seattle, if they run the ball 4 straight plays in a row, get a touchdown on Marshawn Lynch, and then they lose that 28-3 Super Bowl, Tom Brady would very easily be 5-5 in Super Bowls rather than 7-3. Can you imagine that? What if Tom Brady was 5-5, 5 wins, 5 losses in the Super Bowl rather than 7 wins, 3 losses? Interesting thought. And Vince Wilfork, by the way, he did really say and went out there just straight up and said, I would have ran the ball with Marshawn Lynch 4 plays in a row. And I think he's right. I think they would have scored a touchdown and won the game. I cannot believe, to this day, I will never understand why Seattle threw the ball on the goal line when they had Marshawn Lynch in the backfield. It's the most baffling decision. It's one of the historically worst calls in NFL history, actually. That will always be a massive blunder and that we will always look back on. And I didn't watch that show. What was it? It was like The League, I think. I think it was The League, where it's Marshawn Lynch at the beach with one of these guys from maybe Entourage, and I think it was The League. I've never watched either of those shows, and maybe I should. But anyway, this guy goes, "Hey Marshawn, can you pass me a beer?" And he goes, "Just toss it." And Marshawn walks it over him and said, "I'd rather walk it over to you. I'd rather run it over. I don't want to throw it," or something like that. Look it up on YouTube. It's a really funny joke. I feel like I totally ruined it. I don't have much more to add. I'm excited for episode 8 because it's going to be about, I believe, the Nick Foles Super Bowl where they lost to Nick Foles. Yeah, because it's Nick Foles, they lost to the Eagles, then they beat the Rams, and then the episode I am most excited for on the entire planet in this series, the Man in the Arena, is episode 10, where Tom Brady talks about winning a Super Bowl without Bill Belichick in Tampa. And hopefully we hear a lot of insight in why he chose Tampa and the thought process of leaving. And hopefully it's not like episode 6 where I feel like he holds back a lot. And I don't know. I think you can share authentically without bashing other people. And I fear that Tom Brady's going to not talk about why he chose Tampa and why he left New England and why he was excited to leave. And he's going to be, I think, overly respectful when you can share why you left without being disrespectful to Bill Belichick. And I don't know. I hope that it's authentic and not guarded and safe. That's all I'm asking for. And are we ever going to fucking hear from Julian Edelman? Because Julian Edelman, and maybe it's the Rams Super Bowl, I don't know, but he better make an appearance in this series. I would be completely shocked. I thought Malcolm Butler was going to make an appearance. He didn't. I thought Julian Edelman was going to make an appearance in the Falcons Super Bowl episode. We didn't get that. Maybe he'll make an appearance in the Rams Super Bowl. I'm still holding out hope. Now, it is a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. But I'd love to see Bill Belichick talk about Tom Brady. How amazing would that be to have Bill Belichick just sharing his love and respect for Tom Brady, which I know it's there. And Bill Belichick is a way more cool and exciting and energetic, fun dude than he will ever allow the media to see in press conferences after games and stuff. But whether that's this content or content in the future, or maybe when they both retire, I don't know. But I really someday want to hear Bill Belichick talk candidly and openly about Tom Brady. And other than, like, obviously the dumb answers at a press conference or something. So I look forward to that. Guys, I don't want to waste your time. I feel like I have nothing else to add here. But I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you for listening to me talk about Man in the Arena, a series I like. I didn't like episode 6, which was weird. But episode 7, like, almost brought me to tears and made me feel very inspired. And I hope you enjoyed listening to me talk about it. I love you. I appreciate you. Bam, we are done.